Hello and welcome to the EdjSports NFL betting preview for Conference Championship weekend. I'm your host, Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at EdjSports. This week, I'll be taking a look at both the AFC and NFC Championship games, comparing our spread, totals, and moneyline values to the market's values. Before diving in, I want to remind you can catch all of our shows on the EdjSports Podcast Network on your podcast platform of choice. On Mondays, I'm joined by our VP of Data Science, Scott Brown, where we recap the weekend action. And then on Thursdays, I preview some of the best bets from the upcoming weekend action, as I will here today for the Conference Championship games. So be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review to help us grow our audience, and also subscribe to our EdjSports YouTube channel, where you'll be able to catch our podcasts, as well as our matchup previews for every week and our head coach ranking shows. And if you haven't already, check out our site at edjsports.com. That is edjsports.com. And download our app, available for both iOS and Android. On both the site and the app, you can get pregame betting insights for every NFL game, including those fair value spreads and totals that I mentioned. You also have the ability to track your own bets to see the probability of them hitting, and those update in real time throughout the game, depending on how the games are being played. So last week was perhaps the greatest weekend in NFL history, with all 4 divisional round games coming down to the wire, ending on walk-off scores. 3 of those were field goals. The NFL saved the best for last, though, and it did not disappoint, with the Bills and Chiefs giving us what may have been, or what many have called, the greatest game in NFL history, ending on that walk-off touchdown in overtime for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it will be a tough act to follow, obviously, but both conference championship games are rematches from the regular season, with the NFC Championship a third meeting between division rivals. But I'll start with Cincinnati at Kansas City, the first game of the day on Sunday. Now, Cincinnati's in the AFC Championship game for the first time since 1988. They've made 3 of them, or now 3 of them. I believe they're 2-0 in those first 2. So looking to stay undefeated in AFC Championship games. And the Chiefs, on the other hand, are making history, hosting the AFC Championship game for the 4th straight season, the longest streak, beating out, I think, 3 other teams that hosted it 3 straight years at one point. Now, these 2 teams just played 4 weeks ago. Cincinnati won the thriller 34-31. They were down early in that game, came back, and were able to win on a last-second field goal after Zach Taylor chose to go for it on 4th down, 4th and goal at the 1 a couple times with penalties, and then ended up being able to run out the clock and kick that field goal as time expired. But Kansas City has the advantage in overall DVOA, but the offenses are both good offenses going against below average defenses. Kansas City number 1 in weighted offense, Cincinnati number 23 in weighted defense. And then on the other hand, that Kansas City defense is number 20th, and they'll try and stop the number 10 offense in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who have been awesome this year, especially here down the stretch of the season. Now, both special teams units are in the top 6. Kansas City number 3, Cincinnati number 6. You might think that's not a huge deal looking at special teams rankings, but as we saw from last week in Green Bay, special teams can definitely lose you a game, especially in the playoffs. That's kind of the last thing you want. But overall, teams pretty well matched, but Kansas City, I mentioned, overall DVOA has the advantage, number 2 overall, while Cincinnati is 12th. So moving into the spread here, I'm not sure Joe Burrow and Cincinnati can keep up with Mahomes and the Chiefs this time around like they did last time. The market doesn't really think so either. Market's got Kansas City at -7. Our edge for value is Kansas City -6. So just a point shy there, giving Cincinnati a slight edge to cover, 50.8% chance to cover, but almost 56% chance to push or cover. So to lose by 7 or less, or to win the game. Now, Cincinnati has won 6 straight against the spread. Kansas City's won 2 straight against the spread. So something's got to give there unless they push. If that stays at 7 points and it ends up being a 7-point game, neither would lose, but neither would win either. Now, looking at the total, the market is pretty high on this one, 54.5 points. That's up from 51 at open. So this has been bet up pretty high. People are thinking this one's going to be a pretty high scoring game. Our edge for value is even higher than that at 57 points. Again, 2 top 10 offenses going against a couple below average defenses, both of those below 20th in weighted DVOA. That Kansas City defense was really strong there in the middle of the season, but have kind of come back down to earth. Not as bad as they were in the beginning of the season. But against non-Ben Roethlisberger opponents, I think I saw yesterday against their last 4 or 5 opponents giving up like 400 yards and 30 points or over 30 points a game. So haven't been great. And we know that Cincinnati offense has been really good lately. The Kansas City offense, we know what they can do. So expecting a lot of points in this one. We've got this game with 57.5% chance to exceed 54.5 points. And now Cincinnati, though, 3 straight unders in their games. Kansas City, 7 straight overs as well. As that offense has played, putting up a bunch of points. I mentioned giving up a lot of points as well. So we'll see here, but we like the over in nearly 58% of our simulations. Now, looking at the money line values, there's really not a ton to be had either way. If you wanted to take one, Kansas City, 72% chance to win versus market implied 77. But when we look at Cincinnati's money line value, we have them at 28% versus the market's 27. So you've got kind of the juice baked in there that makes it, not really a great value on Cincinnati for the money line. And then Kansas City, we've got a little bit lower there at 72% compared to 77. So recapping this matchup, the first game on Sunday, got some slight value on Cincinnati to cover, to push or cover at 55.8% at +7. Slightly more value on the over at 57.5% chance for the game to exceed 54.5 points. Moving on to the second game of the day, San Francisco at Los Angeles. The third matchup for them this season. San Francisco won 31-10 in Week 10. And then San Francisco won 27-24 in that overtime thriller in Week 18 to get into the playoffs. They were down 17-0 until Robbie Gould made a field goal right at the end of the first half. They were down 17-3 at halftime and came back to win that game. San Francisco, obviously, we know, shocked Green Bay at Lambeau Field last week to get here. The Rams had a big lead against Tampa Bay and almost fumbled it away, nearly blowing the game, allowing Tampa Bay to tie it. But Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp came through, as they have pretty much every week this year, set them up for the game-winning field goal. And the Rams are hoping the third time is the charm against their NFC West rivals this week. Now, this is the closer of the 2 conference championship games. San Francisco is number 5 in overall DVOA. Los Angeles is number 3. That 49ers offense is 8th in weighted DVOA against a 3rd-ranked Los Angeles defense in weighted DVOA. The Rams offense hasn't been as great in weighted DVOA. They're still 12th, but they're going against that number 4 San Francisco defense. So pretty good matchup here on both sides of the ball. An interesting split that Aaron Schatz, our partner over at Football Outsiders, tweeted out yesterday, a couple days ago. Looking at DVOA in late and close situations. So those are second half and overtime when the game is within 8 points. They're pretty evenly matched. Los Angeles' offense is first. San Francisco's defense is second. That San Francisco offense is 7th, and Los Angeles defense is 3rd. So expecting this one to be close. It's going to come down to it late, and really neither team has an advantage when it comes to those late game situations. So this one could come down to the wire yet again, just like they did back in Week 18. So should be a really great matchup between NFC West rivals. The NFC West is going to have are going to be represented in the Super Bowl regardless of who wins this matchup. So a good year for that division. Although the Cardinals, who were on top for most of the season, fell short. Obviously, they struggled down the stretch. But these 2 teams, San Francisco came on late. The Rams were really good all year. So it'll be interesting to see which of them is able to come out on top to get to the Super Bowl. So the spread for this one has stayed pretty consistent. The market has Los Angeles as 3.5-point favorites. The Rams were 3-point and 3.5-point favorites in their first 2 matchups as well. Our model likes the Rams, but not as much as the market. We're at Rams -2. So we give San Francisco basically 61% chance to cover that +3.5. And they've won 4 straight against the spread. The Rams have won 2 straight against the spread and won 4 of 6. So both of these teams have been really hot against the spread in the last 4 or 5, 6 weeks. So something's got to give there, especially at that 3.5. There's really obviously no way to push that. If it moves down to a 3, they could both push and not lose it. But one of those streaks is likely to come to an end here in the conference championship. Looking at the total, there's really not much of a difference between us and the market, or there really is no difference. We're markets at 46 points. Our edge fair value is also at 46 points. So we've got this game 49.7% chance to fall short of 46 points, below 50%, but it still does have the edge over the over. So 49.7% for the under, 47.8% chance to go over 46. So about a 2% edge for the under. If we're looking at the under to hit or to push, so we're looking at 46 points or less, that number is 52.2% of our simulations that occur. So really not a great bet on either side here. The under or the push, combining those does have a very slight edge, but really not much value to be had there. One thing to note, San Francisco has the under is hit in 2 straight and 5 of their last 6. Meanwhile, the Rams, I mentioned last week, alternated over and under in the last 10. I said the over would be due last week. Well, the over did hit. So the under would be next this week if that trend continues of alternating like they have in their last 10 games. And then looking at the money line, this one, based on what we have for the spread, you can probably imagine we've got a little bit more value on San Francisco. So the Rams, 53% chance to win by our model versus a market implied 65%. So about a 12% difference there. So we like San Francisco a little bit better to win outright than the market does. So some value there to bet the 49ers. So recapping the NFC Championship, value on San Francisco to cover, 60.2% chance to push or cover plus 3.5. And then really little to no value in the total there. 52.2% chance to fall short of 46 points or push. So that will wrap up our conference championship preview. Pretty quick show this week. Only the 2 games. Obviously not going to recap or walk through all those like we did since we just covered those pretty quickly there. So that'll do it for this betting preview. Be sure to check out all of the pregame betting insights for these matchups on EdjSports.com and our new EdjSports app. Again, that's available for both iOS and Android. Come back on Monday to hear our weekend recap. Hopefully, we've got some exciting games. Got some big 4th down decisions come up. Some really big, impactful plays. Looking for some excitement in this week like we had last week. So come back, listen to that. We'll dive into all the numbers from the weekend that was. Again, please subscribe to the EdjSports Podcast Network on your preferred podcast platform and give us a 5-star review. Help us grow our audience. Help us show up on people's suggestions on both the EdjSports Podcast Network as well as the EdjSports YouTube channel, where you can see all of our matchup previews for every game of every week. We'll have obviously just the 2 this week, but those will be on there. And then don't forget to check back next Wednesday for our head coach rankings update. And then on February 9th, we'll have our Coach of the Year award and our award show, giving out a number of different awards to coaches throughout the season based on their 4th down decision making, which is a big part of our coach rankings. So thanks for listening. Next time we're here, we'll be previewing Super Bowl 56. So enjoy the weekend action and check back with us next week.